Hi, I'm Daniel Michael. Have you been involved in an accident that was not your fault? Um, yeah. The purpose of this video is to introduce a text to you, the I Ching. I hope to communicate a bit about what it is about for two reasons. The first, because it is a cool book and it's worthwhile to speak about and introduce and share. The second is that I'm offering consultations from the book, readings from the book. There's details for that in the comments of whatever post this video is attached to. Cool. So the emphasis of this video will be the text itself, and I will try and orientate you toward it in some way. It's called the I Ching, as I've said. I have David Hinton's translation. He's a sinologist and a poet. Another popular translation is by Wilhelm. It's known in English as the Book of Change or the Classic of Change, Ching for change. It is probably, I think, actually the oldest text that we have as humans, the oldest surviving text, I should say. If we understand text as something closer to the modern day book, though it is very different from what we understand books or text to be. For instance, it is the language is signs, if we call it language, called hexagrams. Hexagrams, it's a combination of 6 lines, composed of 2 trigrams, 3 lines, and there are 64 of those that make up the I Ching. You consult the book as you would a source of wisdom. You come to it for advice. You approach it with a question of sorts. The general procedure for consulting it is you do some procedure or method that works with chance to bring you to a value or a number, and then you do a process with those numbers and it gives you a final value, and that points you to the kind of lines that make up the 6 lines. Now each line can be one of 4 things. Either yang or yin. In yang, it can be old yang or yan, young yang. In yin, it can be old yin or yan, young yin. Tongue twisters. So those are the 4 options. The procedure that you do will direct you to one of those 4. Then you do that procedure 6 times and you arrive at your hexagram. What prompts you doing the procedure is the question that you have, the thing that you want advice on or for. Right now, this current moment is characterized in certain ways. It has a certain quality. And part of that characterization is what it's moving into or toward. It's in a process of change now, and part of the change is where it is and where it's moving to, what it's moving into. This text is an attempt, or perhaps it is, capturing of that process of change. It's the classic of change. So it involves both an insight into now and then into where things are going given where we are now. It is really mysterious. I mean, the I Ching is nothing less than a dance with mystery. uncanny is an appropriate word, perhaps. I've had this text for a few years now, and it's never too far from me. I do consult it fairly regularly. Yeah. An important person in terms of introducing the text to me and informing my relationship to the text is a man and a poet called Robert Berrold. And the way that he describes his relationship to the text or with the text is one of friendship. He describes it as a friend. That really is, that's quite something. More and more I'm coming to appreciate that relationship as my relationship with the text grows. I've introduced it to people close to me, my family and close friends and the like. But initially the relationship was very private. I was checking it out. This now is kind of an extension of what seems like a natural progression, is that I'm offering to make the introduction to you if it interests you. That is the purpose. The purpose, as we started, one of the purposes of this book, this video. What I'll do now is try to give more of a sense of the text itself, and then I will speak about how it is consulted, or the manner of asking. Perhaps I'll do that first, actually. Perhaps the key or the basic ingredient in consulting the text is sincerity. Asking or coming to the text with sincerity. From that position, you open yourself to the possibility of response, to the possibility of interaction with the answer that is given. Otherwise, what you ask could be as general as wanting clarity on the moment that you find yourself in. Usually we seek consultation or advice when we find ourselves in a dilemma. You need not, but that's usually what prompts us. So the asking could be clarity on what's going on, or it could be more specific according to the specific dilemma that you find yourself in. There's space for gradation. Often I've found is that the question can be fairly unformed, but there's the need for asking, and that kind of openness elicits a certain kind of interaction with the text, such that the answer given helps me understand what the question was. It gives me a better understanding of the question. Cool. So I've shot this video now twice. I've done 2 takes, and in each take I go randomly to a part of the text as a kind of example of the text to give a sense of it. The first time I did that, I arrived at 40, hexagram 40, which is unbound, which suggested roughly that a change in attitude delivers one from difficulties, to be unbound from the difficulties, and the catalyzing thing in that to being a change in attitude. The gist of it. The second take, then, I got 35, and that was progress or advancement, which was suggesting that moving in the right direction, making progress. So the difference between the 2 videos was, the first one was more almost apologetic and timid. In the second video, my attitude changed a bit, and I was a little bit more forthcoming and honest and less apologetic, which was an instance of progress, though I was still not completely happy with it. Hence the third take, which is where we are now, and I will now see what the text gives us. Fun. Cauldron. Like a cauldron. Cauldron is the very origin of good fortune. It penetrates everywhere. Presentation. Cauldron is the image. It says the image that heated by the reverent and inward tree of wind burning with the radiance of beauty and beauty of fire. Cauldron penetrates everywhere, cooking things through and through. Great sages long ago penetrated everywhere, for when they used cauldron, the celestial Lord penetrated everywhere. And now, vast and penetrating everywhere, cauldron nurtures great sages and wise elders. It's because you possess cauldron's reverent and inward tree of burning wind that eye and ear know light and sound. Possessing its fire, you move all tender ascent through ascendance as an offering. You come to the abiding center of things, and move always in concurrence with everything, stealing as a mountain in cloud. That is how you penetrate all origins everywhere. So as I mentioned at the beginning, Hinton's style is poetic. His motivation is to get closer to the essence of the text. So some of the formulations in what I just read might be a little startling or a little bit strange to you. But it's something that one becomes familiar with through engaging with the text. It's also why I'm offering to be part of your introduction to the text, is that through time I've developed a familiarity with it, and I'm happy to help unpack. Another translator, interpreter took the same hexagram. He also translated it as the cauldron. His approach is more sort of advice oriented, in that this hexagram says you should do this. That has its pros and it has its cons. What he says is, you serve as an example by sacrificing ego and accepting guidance of higher power. So we came to this because I mentioned the previous two takes, and the first indicating a degree of danger, which was reflected in the attitude in which I came to the video, which is a little bit off key. That improved, though it wasn't good. It was an advancement or a progression, which then prompted me to make this third video, and a fairly favorable reading at that. I've accepted a degree of guidance and entered a relationship with it, and there's been a conversation such that we've arrived at where we are now. Anyway, as I said, the hexagram is comprised of two trigrams, and each trigram has an association. So here's an example up top. This is the cauldron hexagram. The top is fire, radiance and beauty. The bottom is wind, reverent and inward. talking about the image of it. Above a tree of wind, fire, that is cauldron. Using it, the noble-minded inhabit a potent place at the hinge of things, where the inevitable unfurling of things comes to pass. So, it's probably redundant or euphemistic to say that this book has been widely influential, especially to a Chinese context. In it, you find forerunners to a lot of the thought and ideas that are developed in Taoistic or Taoistic thought. So familiarity with that thought too helps you unlock more of what there is here. It really is a magnificent text, and I'm happy to be, it feels right and it feels natural to be extending it in this way. If your interest is piqued, holla.